What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece Ayers with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. China says it will counter US President Donald Trump's tariffs with its own import fees on a range of US products. China's finance ministry says tariffs of 15% will take effect on February 10th on US coal and liquefied natural gas. A 10% tariff will be placed on crude oil, farm equipment and some cars. It made the announcement on Tuesday, just after Trump's additional 10% tariffs on Chinese goods came into effect. Donald Trump has agreed to a 30-day pause on tariffs he's threatened to impose on Mexico and Canada, after the two trading partners agreed to boost enforcement along their borders with the US. The pause will give the sides time to hammer out a resolution to what could still be a looming trade dispute. As for China, all goods it sends to the US are now subject to an additional 10% tariff, and the EU could be next. Rosie Greninger has the latest.
A deal to delay tariffs is struck just hours before US President Donald Trump's sweeping duties were set to hit two of the US's biggest trading partners. After speaking with their US counterpart, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced the tariffs will be delayed for at least 30 days.
Me preguntó que cuánto tiempo quería poner en pausa. Le dije, bueno, pues vamos a ponerlo en pausa para siempre. Y me dijo, bueno, pues ¿cuánto tiempo? Le dije, bueno, vamos a ponerlo en pausa un mes. Y estoy segura que en este mes vamos a poder dar resultados. Buenos resultados a su pueblo, buenos resultados al pueblo de México.
Under the deal, Mexico agreed to send 10,000 National Guard troops to the US border to stem illegal drugs moving into the United States. And just hours later, a similar agreement with Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took to social media to say his country would implement a $1.3 billion plan to reinforce the border and appoint a new czar to combat the import of fentanyl. This after Trump claimed Canada and Mexico failed to prevent the movement of migrants and illegal drugs into the US. It puts a temporary end to a brewing trade war in North America, where Mexico and Canada had threatened retaliation for Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on all goods from both countries. Negotiations are set to take place over the next month to try and find a solution that does not include tariffs. But Trump's global trade war is not over.
But when you're the pot of gold, the tariffs are very good. They're very powerful, and they're going to make our country very rich again.
An additional 10% tariff still went into force on Chinese imports into America, Trump also citing illegal drug imports for that levy. Trump is set to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping in the next 24 hours, saying if a deal cannot be struck, those tariffs will be substantial. He has also not backed away from his trade threats against the European Union. After EU leaders met in Brussels, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said they are open for dialogue with the US, but won't be pushed around.
When targeted, unfairly or arbitrarily, the European Union will respond firmly.
Economists warn Trump's proposed tariffs may backfire, possibly leading to higher inflation and higher costs in the US, something Trump promised US voters he would reduce.
Il perd sa crédibilité parce qu'il renie des accords commerciaux qu'il avait lui-même signés lors de son premier mandat. Il va augmenter les coûts pour les consommateurs américains. Il va faire apprécier le dollar.
But as Wall Street ended Monday's trading down, rattled international markets partially recovered from their losses after Trump backed down from some of his tariff threats. But with more trade sanctions on the horizon, investors will be watching what Trump does next. Eason Pan and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's economy ministry has promised help for Taiwanese businesses operating in Mexico that could be impacted by possible US tariffs.
美国总统大选后的贸易政策变化将持续影响全球经贸环境。我们要未雨绸缪，为台商以及企业提供更完善的支持。
The ministry says it will set up consultation services and relocation support for the more than 300 Taiwanese companies that operate in Mexico. Those include some of the world's biggest semiconductor manufacturers, whose exports could be affected if Donald Trump follows through on his threat of a 25% tax on Mexican goods. But tech leaders are also anticipating further tariffs that could more directly affect Taiwan.
美国政府下一波应该就是会针对台湾啊，特别是半导体，强迫台湾的这些晶圆厂还有相关的供应链搬到美国去制造。
Trump has delayed implementing those 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico by a month, pending negotiations. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he is now the acting head of USAID, the agency that distributes billions of US dollars in aid around the world. The agency is being dismantled by Republican President Donald Trump, who says it is wasteful and could be fraudulent. But Democrats are vowing to fight back. Rick Glowert reports.
Staff at the US Agency for International Development, or USAID, were told not to come in for work here on Monday. Its headquarters in Washington, D.C. instead became a site for protest.
What do we do?
At the dismantling of the $40 billion budget foreign aid agency by President Donald Trump and his billionaire ally Elon Musk.
And just like Elon Musk did not create USAID, he doesn't have the power to destroy it. And who's going to stop him? We are. We're going to stop him.
We're here today not only to fight for federal employees who dedicate themselves every day to a humanitarian task. We are here to save lives, because that is what AID does.
The last few weeks have seen spending cut off, staff furloughed, and the website taken offline. The eradication of an agency that has for decades funded education and fought disease internationally is proving particularly controversial. Congressional Democrats say the shutdown is illegal and have vowed to fight it in court. Trump defended it as part of his efforts to shrink federal government spending, saying Musk, who is running the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, has found waste and fraud at the agency.
It's something that should have been done a long time ago. It went crazy during the Biden administration. They went totally crazy, what they were doing, and the money they were giving to people that shouldn't be getting it, and to agencies and others that shouldn't be getting it. It was a shame. So they're tremendous fraud.
Trump said a future report would detail Musk's findings, but for now, US-funded humanitarian aid programs in more than 100 countries from Ukraine to South Africa have come to an abrupt halt. The US is the largest provider of foreign aid in the world, and there are concerns that other international actors could move into spaces now left vacant.
So the US is actually currently involved in an intense and intensifying competition, a geostrategic competition, largely with China, but also with other adversaries around the world. By taking these steps, these drastic, draconian steps with regard to US foreign aid, it actually could have the effect of ceding the battleground, or ceding the playing ground, if you will, and others will very enthusiastically fill that void.
Trump campaigned and won the presidency on a platform of putting America first and shaking up the federal government. His decisive move in his first weeks in office to dismantle USAID is sending out shockwaves at home and abroad. Hank Xu and Rick Glowert for TaiwanPlus.
Leaders of Taiwan's business community in China expressed both hope for cross-strait exchanges and concerns about Taiwan's political future during an annual banquet. But as John Van Trieste reports, their views don't entirely align with those of the officials, including the president, who attended the event.
Lion dancers welcome a gathering of Taiwanese business people back home from China for the Lunar New Year. This annual banquet is a chance for these entrepreneurs, whose livelihoods depend on friendly ties with China, to hear from Taiwanese officials and make sure officials, in turn, hear them. The event's cordial, but not far in the background are concerns about policy and politics at a time when relations with Beijing are far from cozy. China claims Taiwan and isn't shy about using economic as well as military pressure to achieve its aims. President Lai Ching-te repeated his view that sovereignty is key.
国际社会追求和平，无非都是透过
靠实力来求得和平，那台湾也不应该例外。
But signs of unease about the way things have been going, both at home and abroad, soon showed. One business leader, based in the Chinese city of Xiamen, surprised the gathering by speaking out against recent political turbulence, with Taiwan's two main parties threatening to take down each other's lawmakers with a mass recall campaign. He addressed Lai directly, not as president, but as chairman of his Democratic Progressive Party, one of the two parties involved. Officials at the event sought to calm nerves.
民主政治本来就是吵吵闹闹的政治，但是只要乱中有序，国家就会在吵吵闹闹中不断改善、不断进步。所以我要请大家不必担心两蒋。
But any political instability would bring uncertainty for businesses. And on top of everything else, Taiwan doesn't have absentee voting, meaning these business people would need to fly back to Taiwan again just to have a say on any recall measure. Business people also used the event to voice their hope that Chinese tourists will be able to come back to Taiwan soon, and that flight routes canceled during COVID will come back into service. But there were also notes of gloom, with one speaker predicting any thaw between Taiwan and China will be tough at a time when Taiwan's main security guarantor, the U.S., is locked in its own tussles with China over trade and chips. When these business people go back to China to start a new year of work, it's clear they'll do so with mixed feelings, facing a challenging environment at home and abroad. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taipei Mayor Zhang Wan-an has slammed the decision to deny entry to a delegation from the Shanghai City branch of the Taiwan Affairs Office, calling it regrettable. Zhang says he hopes the central government will improve communication with China. The delegation was meant to attend the festival, which normally includes a Shanghai exhibit, but the Mainland Affairs Council says the Shanghai TAO's application came too late this year, and that the Shanghai branch has been blocking Taiwanese business people from returning to Taiwan. Taiwan's military has reportedly started training to use the first batch of US-made Abrams tanks. Local media report that soldiers have been undergoing classroom training since December. Last year, the military sent personnel to the US to develop training manuals for the tanks. In December, Taiwan received the first batch of 38 tanks out of the 108 it purchased in 2019. The Abrams tanks are expected to be ready to enter service in the second half of this year. Thousands of Queensland residents are returning to their homes after torrential rain flooded parts of the Australian state over the weekend, killing at least one person. Queensland Premier David Crisafulli described the damage caused by the flooding as incredible, but said that many had dodged a bullet after floodwaters expected on Tuesday did not materialise. More than 8,000 properties remain without power. The maker of ChatGPT has big expansion plans for Asia, with new tech partnerships in South Korea and Japan. OpenAI announced plans to develop AI with South Korean internet giant Kakao less than 24 hours after unveiling a joint venture with Japanese conglomerate SoftBank. SoftBank says their project with OpenAI aims to create a system called Crystal Intelligence, capable of automating much of the everyday knowledge work in enterprises. The two partnerships come as OpenAI CEO Sam Altman tours Asia, having met with Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru in Tokyo before traveling to Seoul to meet Kakao's CEO. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, check out this digital art display in Barcelona, where images of trees growing are projected onto one of architect Antoni Gaudi's unique building designs. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.